The Board of Cosmetology meeting will come to order May the 6th, 2013. At this time, we're going to welcome our guests. How many, would someone from each school stand up, please? How many students do you have? And you're from where? Millermont, Clarksville? Okay. And how many? Okay. Well, welcome. We're so glad that you came. I would like to apologize before we even start the meeting. I've had laryngitis, so my voice may come out high, it may come out low, I never know. It may not even come out. So just forgive me with my voice today. We'll have roll call starting with Miss Huckabee.
June Huckabee, present.
Earl Smith, present.
Linda Colley, present.
Judy McAllister, present.
Rufus Hereford, present.
Earl Walker Ali, present.
Okay, in front of you, you have the minutes of the Reciprocity Committee, April the 1st. Is there any discussion on those minutes? We've had these a long time to read. If there's no discussion, do I hear a motion that we approve?
Make the motion to approve.
Aye.
I second.
Motion made by Ms. McAllister, seconded by Ms. Walker Ali, that we accept. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Ayes carry. Also in front of you, you have the minutes of the regular cosmetology meeting for April the 1st. Is there any discussion?
Chairman,
Yes, ma'am.
page 2, at the top, where the motion was made by Ms. Walker and seconded by Judy to approve the continuing education seminar. I voted no on that. Top of the page.
Was that on the first motion for approval?
Yes.
Okay, I'll make that change.
Okay. With that change being made, do I hear a motion we accept?
I so move.
Motion made by Ms. Huckabee that we approve. Do I hear a second? Seconded by Ms. Smith. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Ayes carry. Okay. I would like to present our Assistant Commissioner, Mr. Bill Giannetti. You have the floor.
Good morning, Chairman, Board. Hope y'all made it in safe and dry. It's been a yucky morning out there. As you all know, several months ago, we made some administrative changes with the management and the board. As we went forward, we analyzed what we felt were the deficiencies with the management that had been in the past, and were evaluating where our needs were in search of a new director. In our analysis, we determined that it was far more important that we find somebody with a solid administrative background, more so than a cosmetology background. You all are the professionals in the cosmetology side. We had those bases covered. It was very, very important that we find somebody with a solid administrative background, someone who had implemented new processes and was a problem solver. And I'm very excited to sit here today and tell you I think we found that person. She's sitting here beside me. Her name is Roxana Gamusio. She will be the new executive director for the Board of Cosmetology and the Board of Barber Examiners for the state of Tennessee. She starts on May the 20th, and I wanted to give you all a chance to meet her, ask her any questions you might have, and welcome her.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you for having me here today. I'm really excited about this opportunity. I appreciate your time, and I'm just hoping to soak it all in and learn just an awful lot quickly, and then I'll be, available for all of you anytime you need me.
We certainly welcome you aboard. You've got a lot to absorb, and I know you'll do it quickly.
Oh, I wanted to also publicly thank Attorney Powers Selby for the assistance that she has provided through the process. It was not easy coming in to manage the office and to look at what we believe to be the key issues. She's done a great job of getting us where we are today in a position to be able to hire a new director. So I want to thank her too. So, you guys have any questions for Director Camusio? All right. Well, we're looking forward to her, and we appreciate you. And like she said, don't hesitate to give her a call if you need. She's going to be learning, and it's going to be, I hope, a long, rewarding relationship. Thank you.
We're quiet today, but we're not quiet usually. Welcome. Okay. Mr. Padilla, I can't say that word. It's a long name.
Lourdes Sardea Padilla and John Sanchez.
Thank you. Okay, moving on. Maria Wallace.
Alice, if you'll just step up to the podium. Miss Wallace's information is on your iPad after Miss Padilla's. You'll have to scan to page 24. Ms. Wallace is requesting approval to take the Tennessee Cosmetology examination with hours received from 1988 through 1992. Ms. Wallace's application hours and transcripts are provided on your iPads. She was previously licensed as a manicurist in Tennessee in 1991, but the license has since expired. The current cosmetology board policies provide only 150 general education hours can be transferred from an active license towards curriculum for another license. But Ms. Wallace would like to use all her hours towards the cosmetology licensure. Ms. Wallace, you had, I'll let you go ahead and present your information, but in addition, you were going to work on getting some transcripts for the board to review.
Yes, I found out that back when I was in school, that they didn't do transcripts. It was put in as hours. But the reason why I didn't further it then is because I had gotten sick, had back surgery, and I was recuperating from that, and then I needed money right away, so I went on and found a job in another area. But I did want to pursue getting my cosmetology license.
Now, let me see if I can. You had a license in Tennessee as a cosmetologist?
No, I had manicure license.
Manicure. In 1991.
Yes, that's correct. I did complete the cosmetology hours.
Completed 1,500 hours. I'm trying to look at this. And what year was that?
But it started in, I don't have it in front of me, but it was 88 to 91, 1,058, that's when I first entered. Then I later went to Nashville Incubation. That was nails only, and I completed that, and I took the nail test, but once it expired, I did not renew it. But then I furthered at Tennessee Technology, and they said all I needed was 217 hours to complete it. I was told then that since I had my hours that I wouldn't lose them, but I learned later that you all had a new law that anything past 7 years you would lose them.
And you weren't aware, ma'am, of the 7-year law at the time?
Oh, I just learned of it within like the past 2 weeks.
I do not know the year that became law, but it had to be before this book was made, and this was reprinted in 1997.
What we've got this, what she gave us, a copy of this. Ms. Powers gave us this. Last year, Ms. Powers gave us this.
Chairman, in the annotated history, the statute was enacted
86?
estimated 96.
96. And would you read that, please, sir?
Or 123, the student shall have 7 years from the date of the student originally enrolls in a school to complete the required courses and number of hours required when the student originally enrolls. If the student fails to complete the course of instruction within that time period, the board may require the student to complete additional courses or attain additional hours prior to issuing a license to the person.
Okay, now that is about the length of time to get your 1,500 hours in. Is that correct?
Time you enroll.
Okay. Let's get to the bottom. When you started, when did you enroll first time?
1988, if I'm not correct. If I'm not mistaken.
I could.
Dime Flannery.
Oh, go ahead.
Okay.
She enrolled, if you look on the second page under her iPad, it's the back of her application for examination. She went to Helena Dye and Flannery from 1988 to 1990 and maintained 1,058 hours. And then in 91, she enrolled in Nashville State Vocational School and received 325 hours. That 325 hours is what the law was at the time for her to receive manicuring curriculum, and she tested and became a licensed manicurist. Then in 92, at the top of the application, Tennessee Tech is certifying that she went and received 217 additional hours. So they're totaling her hours as 1,600. The crux of the issue is, can she use the 325 hours that she received in manicuring towards the cosmetology curriculum? If she cannot, I believe she's 75 short, because you generally can only transfer 150 general hours, and that would mean she did not complete her school. Her request today is just that she be allowed to use all the hours and take the Tennessee examination.
She got her hours within the time limit of the 7 years.
Technically, they were in different curriculums. That's part of the issue.
Both cosmetology and manicurist would require her to have studied and learned the law and sanitation.
Correct, yes.
And then even a cosmetologist must be trained in manicuring, not particularly in the acrylic nail, etc., but in manicuring.
And I'm not actually aware what the manicuring curriculum included back in 91 when there was only 325 hours required, so it may be similar to what cosmetology requires now. And that's why I had asked that she bring her transcript, so maybe we could look at the breakdown of what she actually took to see if it equaled the 1,500 total hours. Our breakdown in the rules is obvious. So much general for cosmetology, so much physical, and so much chemistry. And with the information we currently have, we just have a breakdown of the 325 hours in general, chemical, and physical, and those all include nails, and that's on your iPad on page 31.
Flannery did not have the transcript of your courses. Is that true?
No, to my understanding, they just gave you hours. There was no transcript back then.
So you have not worked as a manicurist since 1991? Is that correct?
Oh, actually, I'm in the child care field, but I would like to pursue my cosmetology.
Are there any questions that you would like to ask Ms. Wallace?
If I cannot be granted my hours today, I'd just like to know if I can continue, get my manicuring license, and go from there to build up to cosmetology, to be able to take the test.
Okay, repeat that again so I can understand what you were saying.
I had my nail license. They are expired. So I'm just wondering, can I take that test and I guess go back to school, whatever I need to do to get up to where I need to be to get the cosmetology license.
Okay.
Ms. Wallace, how long have they been expired?
Nail license?
Yes.
I don't have that in front of me.
It was in 91, isn't that?
That sounds correct, yes.
Okay.
Have, ma'am, all the required hours in 1991 to be a manicurist?
91? Yes, I actually, it was a nails only class, and I completed the class, and I took the test and got my license.
Excuse me. Well, it's my understanding that the rule is that you can acquire these hours and retain 150 of those hours from one course to the other, and that would be my recommendation.
Well, she also would like to take the exam for manicuring and get that active prior to getting her cosmetology hours in. Is that correct?
There wouldn't be any problem with that. Any manicurist who's ever been licensed in Tennessee could just reapply to test for the manicuring exam, and once they pass, become licensed again. So
She could be accumulating her hours in cosmetology.
absolutely, she could use the 150 general transferable hours and put that towards a cosmetology curriculum.
Is there any discussion, or do I hear a motion, please? In other words, if we allow her to take the Tennessee manicure exam, she could take that exam, get her license, be working as a manicurist, also with a child care, whatever her other job may be, and then be working towards accumulating more hours toward her cosmetology, with 150 hours being used towards her cosmetology.
So she'll have to get how many hours?
Subtract 150 from 1,500. 13.
Does it have to be 1350? Can it be a lesser amount under the law?
The law?
I'll let Rob read the discretionary version of the statute.
The way the statute's written is that it's retained for 7 years after the date that they sign the papers and enroll in school. After 7 years, then it's discretionary for the board.
Now that's for the hours that she accumulated, is that?
Well, the statute says the student shall have 7 years to complete the required courses. So that would be for whatever program they enrolled to complete. So I guess if originally they were enrolled for manicure, they'd have 7 years to get manicure.
Okay, but
After that time, it's discretionary for the board. You can either allow them to take the exam without any further action, or you can require them to take some additional courses.
in her education, and I'm looking through it, but I'm having a hard time analyzing all these different documents. She has attended 1,600 hours. Is that correct?
That is correct. They just were not fully in cosmetology. It seems that 325 of the 1,600 were general and manicuring, and that she used towards a manicuring license, and it's been the board's policy to only transfer 150 hours. And in this case, she is requesting to use all her hours obtained as 1,500. And it's up to the board to accept that and let her test, or the board could say you could go back and take additional 325 hours in cosmetology, or the board could really, it's up to you to determine what you have her do to test. You can say she can only use 150. You have various different options here as to your discretion, because the law states that it's in the board's discretion to require additional courses before issuing a license, so before allowing her to test.
The statute's not specific about what particular path that somebody's taking. So 7 years to complete the required courses for whatever they're trying to get now. So if they had, it's like Rachel said, it's discretionary for the board how you want to cut that up or apply it to get the required coursework for whatever you're trying to test for.
I think my question would be whether the 150 hours still count after 7 years
Yes.
for transfer.
That's why the statute's written that way, because now after 7 years you may require them to take additional courses. Probably because of that, because of the length of time.
Some of our statutes don't allow the board discretion. They're very clear cut. This is what you have to do. And some of them do allow you discretion. And in this case, you have discretion.
Well, my thoughts are, rather than require her to do 1,350, is that correct? Rather than require her to do the 1,350, could we come up with a percentage or a sliding scale based on the years lapsed or something, rather than the entire 1,350?
She has attended 1,600 hours at one time. How proficient do you feel you are in cosmetology at this point?
I feel good, but I know I will have to do a refreshing course just to get up to date with the new state board said and the laws and all. But yeah, I feel I can do it.
Excuse me, ma'am. Well, these 1,300 hours that you had initially in manicuring, were they working hours, or were they school hours, or how did you
No, I was
accumulate
actually
those?
working.
Working hours,
Yes.
And that was here in Tennessee.
I asked this question, does our attorney feel that she should take the manicuring exam again?
Requirement, I believe.
She has to take the manicuring exam if her license has been expired for more than 3 years. In this case, she's requesting to use all the hours she's received in both curriculums towards the cosmetology exam. In order to reinstate her manicuring license, she will have to take the manicuring examination.
The license is a matter of expiration. This is a matter of trying to get enough hours.
My recommendation would be that she take the exam and follow that profession, only get 150 hours credit toward her cosmetology. And she will have to go back to school for those again.
Second it.
Motion's been made by Mr. Herford, seconded by Ms. Huckabee, that you set for the Tennessee manicure exam and get credited 150 hours towards your cosmetology hours. Do I, all in favor say aye?
Aye.
Opposed, nays? Nay. No, one nay. Ms. Walker Alley, nay. Motion carried. Good luck, ma'am. Thank you. Mr. Oscar Hodge?
Mr. Hodge may not be here today. He called me at the end of the last week, but I didn't make contact with him. He has previously presented his application to the board for a new school. He has provided the enrollment agreements, the bond, and the payment. And it's my understanding that at last month's meeting, the board voted to table his application until the inspector and both the board member, Ms. Walker Ali, went to visit the school. The inspector has reported back, and you will find on your iPad the inspection sheet with a 100, and I'll let Ms. Walker report back as to her findings.
Basically, the environment of the facility was, as it was on paper, there were some contradictions and just some things that were not flowing right. And so when we went in, it was just obvious that the spacing in the shampoo area was not wide enough. There was not a back bar behind the shampoo bowl. So it was just being there in person. It was very obvious that it was not set out practically in terms of how the space was going to be used. And so what we did is we literally moved the furniture around. Every room, it was just too much furniture.
Physically moved?
We physically moved the furniture. And we did it. We got it done inside of an hour. It was me, the other inspector, and the staff people that they had there. But we got them ready for. We got them ready to open their school, and so they were approved. But it was a nice facility. The issues about the door being accessible from the school into the salon, they addressed that. They had addressed our concerns, but from a standpoint of being practical, they needed more space. But I think that I know that I definitely brought my experience being in the salon to the situation, and so I'm glad that I was able to assist them with this and where they could go on and get open. But every room, it just had too many stations, and we pulled them out and came up with some creative ways, because I do feng shui and all that kind of stuff, but some creative ways to get the furniture situated where it wouldn't be cluttered, because there were spaces where students would just be back to back in corners where they, put two stations perpendicular to each other, and it was just too tight. So, like I said, I was glad that I was able to help them get their school open.
What about that large room, Ms. Walker Alley, that he has on the floor plan, it shows nothing in that big room.
At the front door?
In the center. Or is that part of the salon? The white part?
That would be part of the salon.
Okay.
Yeah, that would be part of the salon.
I believe the front is actually the far left side, if you see the doors, and the top in the middle is the salon, which is walled off with a separate entrance.
So when you left, you felt comfortable?
Yes, I felt comfortable. I also physically went into the salon area. and looked around there before we even began.
Inspector also included the salon inspection sheet, which is right after the school inspection sheet, and they received 100 as well.
In regard to the shampoo area, do you feel comfortable that all 5 of those stations are workable stations?
Yes, all 5 of them are workable stations. What I recommended is that the last station on the end that wouldn't have as much traffic because of its proximity to the door, but moving that one or any of them, they would have had to redo the whole area or go to another area that just wasn't visibly available. So what I suggested is that last shampoo bowl on the end that wouldn't get as much traffic because of its proximity to the closet, that they use that for left-handed students or students that would need to shampoo from the other side of the bowl. So that was my recommendation.
They would still have their 5 shampoo units?
Correct.
Dryers did they have?
They had 10 dryers. They had 10 dryers.
We just require 5.
They could do away with 5 of those dryers.
Yes, so what we did was in the hallway, where it says this white area here, we moved some of the dryers in this area. I had them to put them back to back, and told them to put, a 2x4 in between the bottom of the dryer so that the domes wouldn't bump heads. And so that way he was able to put 4 dryers into the hallway and freed up some wiggle room.
You went beyond the call of duty.
Can I ask a question? Do you feel like the school can expand on the facility or in the facility that they have now? How many people, maybe? How many students?
If they do part-time, they could expand. The space it's a nice space, but it's really tight. I don't know, unless they went upstairs or either closed the salon and moved into that space, they could do some expansion that way. But with the space as it is, they could move a few things around minimally, but not a whole lot of space for expansion.
But he does own the salon as well.
Correct.
So we have the school that was inspected by the inspector and was inspected by Mrs. Walker Ali. And I can see where you would have to have moved some of that when looking at these pictures. Some of those stations where they could work. And I'm very proud that you went beyond the call of duty. Do I hear a motion that we accept, or is there any more discussion?
I move that we accept.
Second.
Motion made by Ms. Walker Ellie, seconded by Ms. McAllister, that we accept. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Ayes carry. Thank you. Okay. Robin Wilson. Robin Wilson. Okay, I'm going to turn the meeting over.
She's coming up.
Oh, I didn't see you coming, sorry. Good morning.
Ms. Wilson is here today to request additional dates for the continuing education seminar approved at last month's meeting. The information on the seminar is attached, as well as the seminar resume, and the instructors' resumes, and agenda for the seminars. The request is for approval of the same seminar on Saturday, August the 10th and Sunday, August the 11th in Gatlinburg, and again on Saturday, October the 12th and Sunday, October the 13th in Chattanooga, Tennessee.
Excuse me. At our last meeting, didn't we say that we would see how the June meeting instructor symposium went before we would go any further? Is that what, I think
Yes,
that's...
ma'am, we did. We did. And you were to, I think, attend, were you not?
I haven't received information about it, but I know it's in June, 8 and 9. That was my impression of what we did last month.
We were wanting to go ahead and secure approval so that we can go ahead and start advertising and booking reservations for those classes so that we could finish out our plan for the classes for the rest of the year.
Do you have any people signed up for the original date?
Yes, ma'am.
How many?
So far, I think 26.
And what is your capacity for that?
150.
150?
Mhm.
Well, you know, I think it was going to be up to you to come back to the board to make final approval on this move. And to me, approving more dates before we do that is sort of letting the cart out before the horse gets there.
Do you have a minimum number of people that you need to sign up for the first date to take place?
We will go forward with whatever number we get, but we do expect about 100 people based on inquiries and people who have told us they will pay at a later date.
More discussion?
Discussed at the last meeting about approval of applications to hold these classes. If a applicant meets all the minimum requirements, then you need to let them go ahead and present the program. You've already done that for, what do they do it? For June.
August and October.
It just seems like in the back of my mind, we discussed that we would okay one at a time after the first one. That's what I'm remembering. Am I the
I
only
think-
one that remembers
Oh,
it?
no.
I think the problem there is there's no legal precedent that allows you to
We don't know that they've met all the requirements until they have a seminar.
per the rule that sets forth approval of teacher education programs, they met all the requirements.
On paper.
Yes.
What's happening, in my opinion, if we're not very, very careful, anybody that applies and has the curriculum lined up, we've got to approve, and we've lost our control of what is being taught. That's my concern.
So 440-1-.11, I don't know, but they still got a book. Applicants shall demonstrate to the satisfaction of the board that the teacher training program submitted for approval.
Not here, I'm sorry.
Paragraph 2 says the applicant shall demonstrate to the satisfaction of the board that the teacher training program submitted for approval will, and then it has this list of stuff. So the discretion lies in the fact that the applicant should demonstrate to the satisfaction of the board. After that's been demonstrated, then you have to let them present the program. So I guess what we're doing here is they've submitted. Is this information for June?
Yes.
Your review, which is page 76. I guess it starts in 76. So do they need to review this for a minute? Identical, I guess you need to take a look at what's been submitted to see if it satisfies the board according to the rule.
Ms. Wilson, what was your or your colleague's response last month in regard to the concern about attendance based on the fact that it was the same weekend as the Memphis seminar? What are your thoughts on that?
Just that we offered an alternate location and an alternate in terms of topics that we cover and what's most relevant to the person who will be attending.
And how have you been promoting your seminar?
On our website, we did send out a brochure mailer, making phone calls, emails. We did get that list from the board.
And how many mailers did you send out?
The initial one was 1,000.
Okay. I have a background, some experience in events planning and promotions, and I wish you all much success. I think you all had a great presentation, and the proof is in the pudding, nevertheless, but on paper, it did look like you all had everything put together, and I think what was an appropriate manner. But my concern is being able to get the number of people, as I stated after the motion was made and approved last month, that I'm clear on the concern about the quality and the integrity of the workshops. But I still think that it will be a challenge for the new people who do this to get the numbers in order to be successful and continue to do it. And I'm not saying that you all will not be successful, but people will say they're coming and they're not coming. They will click, you do events on Facebook, they'll click that they're coming and they're not coming, and a lot of times you may get a false impression of what the attendance and the support really is, but I'm not saying that is the case here. I just wanted to point some things out since I do have a background in this, and so that's why I was concerned that if you didn't have enough a certain number, would you be still presenting the workshop? So I guess my point is I was just trying to see where you all were in the project and if there was going to be a deal breaker in terms of.
That's not a deal breaker for us, and,
Okay.
and your concern is noted. And we understood going into this that it was taking a risk and doing something new, especially with it having been so long that the other company was providing that service. But we'll never know if we don't try. So.
Well, I guess my question would be to legal. Would it be legal for us to say after we see how the first seminar goes to move on to okay the second and third? Is that legal?
Well, I was just thinking about that and trying to figure out if that might segue into your approval process. After approving it, you would see how it went. Last time, if I recall, and I think Mr. Hereford was talking about it, making sure that somebody has a certain number of people enrolled, like 50, or as a qualification for having classes so you don't have them scattered everywhere with 5 or 6 people in them. I think so.
I don't think that's going to
A
happen.
market forces type of thing. Because right now we've got, 3 and now 4. And we're trying to figure out how this particular class is going to go. The rule says that you have to, they shall demonstrate to the satisfaction of the board. Now, if you loosely applied that, part of your approval process after you've approved the class would to observe it and see what's taking place.
Madam Chairman, I think that's what we all understood, or myself, last time, by the motion for you to attend this and all to see if it was the demonstration. We hadn't seen a demonstration yet.
But because the board promulgates these rules and not the General Assembly, the board's usually the people that interpret what their own rules mean. And it seems like that's how you want to interpret it, at least this time, until we figure out a better way to do it. If that's what the board sort of feels like needs to happen. I'm not telling you one way or the other. I'm just trying to give you a general view of how the rule might be applied legally.
Well, why didn't we discuss that last month when we decided on, after they had the June seminar, why didn't we discuss that we had to go forward with the rest of the year? Why did we wait till this meeting? It seems like we'll make a decision one meeting, and the next meeting we'll come back and redo what we did the month before.
Well, you approved the curricula last month. It would be impossible, obviously, to watch them present everything unless they were approved. It would be more like a conditional approval. They're approved, and then as part of your approval process, you could observe and see what happens.
Meaning, if you read the 4th rule, that the sponsor has to provide an opportunity for the attendees to evaluate each class and the overall program, the evaluation shall be forwarded to the office of the board. That may be part of your...
Still stuff to do.
Right. You would have to change, obviously, details of the rule, but in sending a board member to attend and then determining if these evaluations were positive and the instructors enjoyed, that sort of thing. Where last month they had simply requested one date with their approval, now they're coming in and requesting additional dates, and so it was not necessary to really discuss this at that time because there was only one particular date and curriculum being requested.
Madam Chairman, I have a school that really was pretty excited about this, and I think that it's something that we need to take more time. I think we need to follow through with our original choice of having you attend the June meeting, and subsequent to that, then we will make up our mind about future meetings. That's my feeling.
So really, they haven't been approved. They won't be. So really, the curriculum won't be approved until after.
Let me add something to that. if we don't do this, it's going to be back in a situation. I keep having flashbacks of how it was in the past. Some of the seminars turned out to be a party. It was not education. I'm not saying theirs is going to be that way, not in the least. But if we don't keep an eye on it to start with, and the students, or not students, but the instructors that will go to a seminar, they'll pay money for education and they don't receive it. That's what happened in the past. As I said, I'm not saying that they would in any way do this, but if the board can attend the first meeting, someone from the board, then that will give us an idea of what kind of classes they have.
Right. You've approved the school to have the presentation. If it's not satisfactory, you don't have to give credit for it. Right now, you've approved the applicant to conduct the classes. If you go and you find out it's not satisfactory, then you're not required to give credit for it.
If all the evaluations come back and they say it was terrible and they didn't learn anything, then it's up to you all to decide we're not allowing the 16 hours of continuing education for the instructors who attended this. Now, that puts a lot of pressure, obviously, on the providers, but at the end of the day, it's up to the board to determine if they want to allow these hours. And those individuals who go to the curriculum approved, obviously they know in the past they've received hours for the other approved classes, and this would be something that they would need to know in advance, that the hours are contingent upon approval of the board.
Let me just interject one more thing, and I'm talking too much, but
No, you aren't.
if we approve this, and then you've got a bunch of instructors that go there and they don't like it, then who's going to refund these instructors of all the expense if they don't get credit?
Also, who's going to say, well, they can't do this anymore because we've already approved them?
Board doesn't regulate contract activity or business practices, so I don't think we can really address how people would be made whole if they felt like they weren't going to get credit for it. All we're talking about is you've approved, based on the list of requirements, the program applicants have been approved to provide the program. So now the board would like to go and move on into the next two paragraphs here, because we haven't gotten the evaluations back yet because they haven't had the class yet. And board members haven't attended to see how it's going to shake out. So right now you've approved, you've given permission to conduct the class, and that's where we are. Find out that it's an inadequate class, the board's not required to award credit to the attendees. As far as what happens next, if things aren't exactly right, then we can't really address that.
That would come down to, well, you've already approved it and they've done the hours, so we can't hold the hours on that. That would be
You've
when it gets
approved
right
an
back to it.
applicant to provide the service, is what you've done, as we sit here now. The service hasn't been provided yet. It hasn't been evaluated.
I can see a lot of problems with this, you all. You've got instructors that go to the school. Then we don't approve the hours. Then sometime subsequent to that, they come in here and they didn't meet their requirement of 2 years. Then it falls right back on us again because we approved something that was, like I said a while ago, the horses are out of the barn. So I just don't see it.
I had a question, please. I'm sorry, what's your name, sir? Robert. I'm sorry, Robert. Robert, what is the legal way to address these concerns that some of the board members are bringing up in regard to the lack of quality and integrity for the seminars that are up and coming?
Well, I was trying to do as far as the way our rules are written right now is how to apply them so we can stay between the ditches and do everything legally. As far as quality of the classes and all, it's just not, for me as the attorney, it's just not part of how the rules and laws are written. I understand the concern, but like all professions, we want our registrants to be involved in the promotion and effectiveness of the profession. Part of how they do that is they apply and provide these classes. We believe that our applicants who want to participate, provide this service, want to do the best possible job they can. And they're interested in succeeding just as we're interested in their success, because if they are successful, then we have more education providers for our applicants. I understand your concern, but as far as the legal application of the law and rules, this is just the way it's constructed now. The good thing about rules is you can change them if you want to through proper process, if you feel there's a better way to do it. Right now, we're just trying to apply them as they exist now. I don't know what to tell you about, if we encounter a failed program. I just don't know what to tell you about that.
Well, I have a comment relating to what Ms. Huckabee said and what Mr. Herndon said. If I remember correctly, last month, and that program, your program looks wonderful. We're not talking about your program when we're talking about this. My recollection is in our discussion, we gave a permission or okayed this seminar for one time. That was my inclination. That's what I remember very much so. Does anyone remember that?
That's correct. You did. You approved it for June of 2013, and in this month, the program is come back before you to request additional dates. So at that time, you did simply only approve the program be offered for one date.
Not stick to that.
You have to make a decision as to the request at today's meeting, which is for 2 new additional dates and 2 new additional locations.
Might I add one thing? I know that you guys have seen our program already and what we offer in terms of the curriculum, but I think that some of the concerns that you have can be addressed by your giving more feedback. This is just me as an observer. More feedback and guidelines in terms of being very specific about what kinds of things must be covered and in what way they have to be covered. We turned in our learning objectives and those kinds of things, and so we welcome that feedback. If you guys have specific things that you would like to see happen in terms of this program, the learning objectives are there, our plans are there and in place, but if you want to say, hey, make sure these guidelines have been met, we can take that information, go back, look at what we've got that's ready to go and present, and make sure that those key elements are covered as part of what we're offering.
Thoughts? Any more discussion?
Well, if you are allowed to proceed with future dates, you would want to connect with the board office, because the other 3 entities, they do connect with at least one board member to get feedback on
Absolutely.
on their presentations.
Absolutely.
So it's down to, do we approve the how many were there? 3 more or 2 more? 2 more dates, or do we not? What were those dates again?
August 10th and 11th and October 12th and 13th.
October 10 and 11 and what?
October 12th, 13th.
Oh, executive.
A month. We skipped September. And skipped July and skipped September.
So the first one you say is October 10 and 11.
August
August.
10th and 11th, and then October 12th and 13th.
I didn't hear the August, I'm sorry, forgive me. Can't talk, can't hear.
Will they be held at the same facility as the first one?
One in Gatlinburg and one in August in Gatlinburg and the one in October in Chattanooga.
And the one in June is where again?
It's here at Tennessee Technology Center.
Okay. You have the cities, do you have specific venues yet?
We're going to secure the one, we do have the one in Chattanooga. We're going to secure the one in Gatlinburg on next Friday. Yes, ma'am.
Madam Chairman,
Yes, Ms.
I'd
Huckabee.
like to make a motion, please.
Yes, ma'am.
I'd like to make a motion that we stick with our motion that we made last month to approve the June seminar since it's next month, and we'll go from there.
I second that motion.
Motion's been made by Ms. Huckabee, seconded by Ms. Smith.
I'd like to make an
Excuse me.
observation, I'm sorry. So the next meeting after they present their program will be in August for us, because we don't meet in July, right?
That's correct.
Part of your motion say that you would like to see the evaluations results from the June meeting at the next meeting? When you
That would be what we would assume, that we would get those then, and a report from Ms.
Now, next
Collins.
meeting is June the 10th,
Yes.
and the seminar's 8th to 9th. Is that correct?
Yes.
Boy, that's quick.
Would have time to give us a report on it.
Right, as long as I got to see the evaluations that day.
Technically, we would need the board to move to table the request for the additional continuing education seminars until feedback is received on the first seminar pursuant to the teacher training program part 3 of the rule. And once that's submitted, you can take up approval of the seminar at various different dates.
Thank you for saying all that. That's exactly what June was saying.
Well, do we need
Because
to table?
we can't move to stick to a motion from last month, because the motion from last month was to approve it for one date in June. So this request is simply for new dates. So we need to move to approve, deny, or table to a certain date for a certain reason.
So Ms. Hopi could make that.
My motion was to, whatever we made last month, to approve it for June. That was what I was doing today.
Right, that was done last month. So today's request is for August and October. So last month's has already been approved, and they're already offering that approval. So we have to move to either approve the new request, deny the new request, or table the new request.
Until after.
Yes. But the board has to move to do that, and all vote to agree to do that.
I'd like to make a motion that we table the request.
Madam Chairman, we have a motion and a second on the floor.
Our motion was completed? I didn't know it was a motion on the floor.
Okay. Ms. Huckabee had a motion, and Ms.
And she
Smith.
repeated, please, because I didn't know she had finished.
Motion?
Yes, please.
It was to, whatever the the decision last month, to stick with that and wait till after they do the June seminar. And
Really,
get a
what you're saying, Ms. Huckabee, and what Rachel was saying, they're identical. It's just the different wording of
Table.
using the word table in there
I
versus.
didn't want to use the word table because we're just going to approve the June, so they can do that and we get a report back from it.
Right, so you table their request until you receive a report back to determine if you want to approve further seminars.
Madam Chair, can I ask one question to Ms. Rachel? Do we need to say table? Because I know I got into it last time by saying table. Can we say postpone?
That's
I mean, I know you and come
Basically
back
the same thing.
You're really both
okay,
saying the
there's-
same thing.
But you need to give a date certain. If you're postponing it to the June meeting, then postpone to June. If you're postponing it to the August meeting, postpone to August. Otherwise, it'll be taken up at the next meeting. It'll be represented the next time you meet.
Really, Ms. Huckabee, what you're saying,
I just made the motion for just what I said. I didn't include any other dates.
And I
So
second
if someone needs to make another motion, then they can.
Thank you.
would you repeat it one more time for me, please? I'm sorry, I've gotten so confused.
That we have they do the June seminar, and we get a report from that, and then more or less go from there.
Okay? So I'm going to repeat this the best I can. Tell me if I'm repeating it correctly. That Ms. Huckabee's making a motion that we do not make a decision on the future dates until after we have a report, which would be, we won't go into this, but it'll be June the 10th, which will be 2 days, one day after the seminar, which myself and our new director will attend. Is that correct, Ms. Huckabee? Yes. Okay, and that's seconded by Ms. Smith. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Ayes carried. Whew. Huh? It wasn't so bad. We'll see you, I'll see you in 8th of June.
Okay.
You need to get the information to me as soon as possible,
I
okay?
absolutely will. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
We go back to the second person on the agenda. I think they may be here now. Miss Padilla and John Sanchez. We're at the very beginning of your iPads on this. Miss Padilla is here today. She is requesting the board's reconsideration of her reciprocal cosmetology application from Wisconsin and Mexico. The application was previously considered in November of 2011, and the board voted she would be required to pass the Tennessee examination. Miss Padilla is currently licensed in Wisconsin and has been since 2007, and she has 1,500 hours of education from Mexico and was licensed there in 1997. She also completed continuing education courses in Wisconsin in both safety and sanitation upon or sometime after receiving licensure there.
I was in March 2011. It was on safety and sanitation and also in law.
In safety and sanitation and in law. And her application from 2011 is in front of you, along with copies of her Wisconsin licensure certification, as well as her transcript of the hours received and the translations, as well as the continuing education courses in safety and sanitation and law received in Wisconsin. My recommendation is that she be approved for reciprocity.
The application, it was in 2011?
Yes.
Has been acted on in 2 years? Am I reading this wrong?
Yes, that's correct.
I mean, where has it been sitting for 2 years?
Oh, it was just in our files. She had never applied to test, and she's come back before the board today for reconsideration.
To test?
No, to be approved for reciprocity. She feels like she meets the requirements with the 1,500 hours of education she has. She's additionally been licensed in Wisconsin since
2007.
2007, and she took in 2011 some additional courses in Wisconsin in safety and sanitation and law as well.
Wisconsin law?
That's correct. to keep my license from Wisconsin.
Oh, they require that?
They require that every 4 years. The renewal is every 2 years, and I'm current licensed over there. For this time, they didn't request continuing education.
And you're currently active license in Wisconsin?
That's correct.
And how many hours do they require?
1,500 and 4,000 for. Let me quick.
Actually, Wisconsin requires 1,800.
Okay, so she's got the hours, and she has an active license in Wisconsin. Is that correct?
That's correct.
All right.
And have you studied Tennessee law?
Excuse me?
Have you studied Tennessee law?
Yes, I
No.
have. I have been reading the rules from the Tennessee laws and regulations and everything, because I'm trying to open my own salon. So I need to have everything in the way it has to be.
Discussion, do I hear a motion? She has completed 1,800 hours and has an active license in Wisconsin. She's requesting reciprocity. More questions? See if she has one or the other.
Okay.
How many years have you worked?
In Mexico, I was working from 2001 to 2004, and I've been working since I got my license in Wisconsin.
Was?
2007
Okay.
until 2010 that I moved over here.
Okay. Still, it's either or. She's got the hours, she's got the license. She doesn't have the 5-year work history, but she covers the other one. It's
Madam Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I make a motion that we approve reciprocity.
Motion's made by Mr. Herford, seconded by Ms. Walker Ali, that we approve for reciprocity. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Ayes carry. Reciprocity. Good luck.
Good luck.
You'll receive a letter in the mail.
Before we start the application, could we take a break?
Absolutely.
Break. And where did you go?
There's a hair show in Atlanta last week, and I got them. There you go.
There we go. Thank you. Yes. We'll turn it over to Ms. Powers.
On the administrative report, first up we have applications for examination for Brian Capel, Jason Faulkner, Sharice Arnold, and Tia Arwood. They all have felonies and are submitted for the board's approval. The required information, disclosure from the student, and letter of recommendation from the school are submitted. We just need a motion and a second to approve each application for examination with a signed agreed order.
I hear a motion. Please. Thank you. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second. All right, motion made by Ms. Smith, second by Ms. Huckabee, that we get a signed degree order. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Nays? Ayes carry.
Next, we have instructor seminar extension request. We have a request from Teresa Smith to extend the continuing education from 2011 to 2013 because of illness Her request was previously presented in November of 2012, and the board voted she would need to provide a doctor's note which detailed her condition. She last attended the seminar in 2010. A doctor's letter is provided, and it is on your iPads.
Helped with the doctor's statement.
Motion's been made by Ms. Smith that we accept since we have the doctor's approval. Okay, do I hear a second?
Second.
Seconded by Ms. Huckabee. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Ayes carry.
Next, we have a request from Monica Barnes to accept continuing education hours earned at Milady's Career Institute in 2012 for her licensure renewal. Information on the classes attended is provided. Her continuing education due date was 2012, and she last attended in 2011. Her certificates, which talk about the class, are attached and on your iPad as well.
This is Ms. Arnold you're talking.
Miss Barnes, we are on page 114 is where it starts, and it goes through page 123.
I'm finally there. It's taken me all this time. Thank you. Refresh me. What is her request, please?
She would like for you to accept the continuing education received at the Milady Career Institute for her 2012 continuing education required to renew. It seems there's a certificate for a completion of a results-oriented classroom management for 8 hours on March 11th, a beauty under one roof 1 hour sanitation class on March 13th, a 0.7 online development module on February 28th, another online development module for strategies for active learning on April 2nd, and a classroom management on June 18th, as well as technology in the classroom on June 18th, and a customer service on June 18th.
This is all online?
Some of them look like they're online. Some of them are not.
Maybe I'm adding wrong, but I did not get 16 hours out of that, even if it were online.
I wasn't sure what .7
Seven.
CEU was.
I'm not familiar with that. All the .7s are online. Yes, ma'am.
West.
I second.
Motion's made by Ms. Huckabee, seconded by Ms. Smith, that we deny. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Ayes carried.
Next, we have applications for reciprocity. First, we have an application for a cosmetology license from Thailand and Oklahoma for Chamathon Cross. The certification from Oklahoma verifies reciprocity was received from Thailand. A transcript from Ruingrit School of Hair verifies 1,500 hours in the cosmetology curriculum, an initial date of licensing in 1996. My recommendation is that the applicant be approved for a reciprocal license.
Their amount of hours in Oklahoma?
1,500,
Okay.
but the hours were received in Thailand.
But they were okayed by Oklahoma.
Yes, and the transcript setting forth the hours are.
And did they take a test in Oklahoma?
No.
Okay, she has an active, is that license still active? Let me find it. Here it is.
It doesn't expire
Yes.
until May 31st.
It's so we have to make a big decision today because that license is going to expire. She has her Oklahoma license. And you said they required how many hours?
1,500.
1,500. She did not take a test. They accepted reciprocity from Thailand. Well, the question is, do we give her reciprocity or do we give her reciprocity after she takes the exams? Kind of boils down to those two. Lots of discussion on this.
Madam Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I make a motion that we give her reciprocity after the exam.
After the exam.
After the exam.
Motion made by Mr. Herford, seconded by Ms. Smith, that she be licensed in Tennessee after she takes the Tennessee exam and passes. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Ayes carry.
Next, we have an application for a reciprocity of a cosmetology license from Angelica Espinoza from Mexico. Her diploma and transcript are provided, which verify 2,000 hours of instruction in the cosmetology curriculum, and an additional 1,500 hours at Paul Mitchell School completed in 2012.
That's some hours.
My recommendation is that she take the Tennessee examination.
Any discussion or motion?
Chairman, I'd like to make the motion that she does take the Tennessee exam. That she do take.
She do.
Does.
She do.
That she
Motion's
takes
been-
the Tennessee exam.
Okay. Motion made by Ms. Smith that she sit for the Tennessee exam. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Herford. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Ayes carry.
Another application for reciprocity of a cosmetology license from Pennsylvania for Alyssa Faree. Her certification verifies 1,250 hours of instruction in the cosmetology curriculum and initial date of licensing in 2009. My recommendation is the applicant take the Tennessee examination.
Madam Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I make a motion that we take Ms. Powers' recommendation.
Okay, motion's been made by Mr. Hereford that we take Ms. Powers' recommendation, which is to sit for the Tennessee exam. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Ms. McAllister. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Ayes carried.
Application for a reciprocity of a cosmetology license for Sarah Gringod from Massachusetts. The certification verifies 1,000 hours and initial date of licensing in 1995, but her license is currently lapsed. My recommendation is the applicant provide current proof of licensure and sit for the Tennessee examination.
She has her did have her license in Massachusetts.
Yes, and it lapsed in 2011. She received it in 1996.
So she got that active and then set for the exam in Tennessee. Is that your recommendation, Ms. Powers?
Yes.
Any discussion?
Excuse me, how many hours does she have totally?
1,000.
Cosmetology, correct?
Correct.
I make a motion that she takes 500 more hours and then sits for the exam.
Motion made by Mr. Hereford, seconded by Ms. Smith, that she attend 500 more hours and sit for the Tennessee exam. All in favor say aye. Opposed, nay. Ayes carried.
Next, we have an application for a reciprocal cosmetology license from Oregon for Meredith Hager. The certification verifies 2,300.4 hours and initial date of licensing in 2009. Her hours are broken down on her certification and transcript. I recommend that she be approved for a reciprocal license.
Her license are now current.
Yes.
So she's just asking for reciprocity. Is that correct? She definitely has the hours, and she has an active license.
Make the motion that we approve the reciprocity.
A second.
Motion made by Ms. McAllister, seconded by Mr. Hereford, that we accept her reciprocity. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Ayes carried.
Next, we have an application for a reciprocity of a manicurist license from California for Than Nguyen. Certification verifies 350 hours and initial date of licensing in 1989. Tax returns are provided for 2009, 2010, 2011, and 2012, and an explanation letter is provided relative to the missing years. My recommendation is the applicant be approved for a reciprocal license.
Discussion?
What happened to the 5th year? What happened to the 5th year?
In his explanation letter, he just doesn't have the tax return. He submitted a substitute year of 2006. Although it's not consecutive, it's in the board's discretion to approve him. And all those tax returns are attached, as well as the letter, on your iPads.
Been working for over 20 years.
Correct.
Reciprocity.
Motion's been made by Ms. McAllister to accept reciprocity. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Seconded by Ms. Walker Ali. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Ayes carried.
Next, we have a application for reciprocity of a manicurist license for Kong Pham from Pennsylvania. The certification verifies the applicant was licensed by examination with 200 hours and initial date of licensing in 2006. A work history letter is provided, but it does not immediately precede the date of the application. My recommendation is that the applicant take the Tennessee examination.
Any discussion or a motion?
I make a motion, Madam Chairman, that he take the Tennessee exam.
Motion made by Mr. Herford, seconded by Ms. Smith. That he sit for the Tennessee exam. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Ayes carried.
Next, we have an application for reciprocity for a cosmetology license for Lindsay Roberson from Arizona and Idaho. An Arizona certification verifies the applicant was licensed by reciprocity from Idaho, and an Idaho certification verifies she was licensed by examination with 2,000 hours in 2002, but both licenses have currently lapsed. The recommendation is the applicant provide proof of current licensure, and upon receipt of proof, be approved for a reciprocal license.
In other words, if she would get one activated, then it would automatically be approved.
Yes.
Do I hear a motion or discussion?
Make a motion that we confer with that Ms. Powers' recommendation.
Okay, Mr. Herford made the motion that she get a license activated in one of those states and then present it, and she will be able to have reciprocity. Do I hear a second?
A second.
Second by Ms. McAllister. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Ayes carry.
Next, we have an application for reciprocity of a cosmetology license from Texas and Mexico for Alma Rosa Robles with 1,800 hours in the curriculum. The certification verifies initial date of licensing in 2013, and this application was previously presented to the board in 2009, and the board requested the applicant provide additional information relative to the courses taken in the curriculum. A copy of the applicant's transcript has been provided. My recommendation is that the applicant be approved for reciprocity.
Make the motion to approve the reciprocity.
I second.
Motion's made by Ms. McAllister, second by Ms. Walker Ali to accept reciprocity. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Ayes carry.
Next, we have an application for reciprocity of an esthetician license from Michigan for Brenna Sheehan with 600 hours in the curriculum. The certification verifies initial date of licensing in 2011. Work history letter is provided, but does not show a full 5-year work history. My recommendation is the applicant take the Tennessee examination.
Make the motion that she take the Tennessee exam.
Motion's been made by Ms. McAllister that she sit for the Tennessee exam. Do I hear a second?
A second.
Seconded by Ms. Walker Ali. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Ayes carry.
Next, we have an application for reciprocity of a cosmetologist license from Puerto Rico for Somlet Vangpaya. The certification verifies initial date of licensing in 1990 and 1,500 hours in the cosmetology curriculum. Diplomas, transcripts, and work history letters are provided. My recommendation is the applicant be approved for reciprocity. Is also taken a test pursuant to the Puerto Rico certification.
Discussion? Any questions? What are your thoughts?
I'd like to ring the dinner bell, Madam Chairman. What was your recommendation again, Ms. Powers?
I recommend that she be approved. Puerto Rico is a U.S. territory, so it's a country that would meet the U.S. territory requirement, and she has the hours, she's tested, and she's currently licensed.
Make a recommendation that we accept.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Hereford, seconded by Ms. McAllister, that she receive reciprocity. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Ayes carried.
Next, we have an application for reciprocity manicurist and aesthetic, or possibly both. I'm not quite sure. Esthetician was checked, but may have been checked by someone in our board office. The certification is for a nail technician. So I'm assuming she wants to be a nail technician, since that's what her certification was for, because I don't think she qualified to be an esthetician. Anyway, she's from Pennsylvania for Phuong Tha Nguyen. The certification verifies her initial date of licensing in 2003 and 400 hours in the curriculum. Tax returns are provided, but the 2012 return displays that she was in Tennessee. So I'm not sure if that's something that you all want to look at, but my recommendation is that she takes the Tennessee examination.
Make the motion she takes the Tennessee exam.
A second.
Motion made by Ms. McAllister, seconded by Ms. Walker Ali, that she sit for the Tennessee exam. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Ayes carried.
Next, we have an application for reciprocity of a cosmetology license from New York for Ebony Chillis. The certification verifies initial date of licensing in 2013 and 1,000 hours in the curriculum. My recommendation is the applicant take the Tennessee examination.
Hours.
Make the motion she take the Tennessee exam.
Motion's made by Ms. McAllister that she sit for the Tennessee exam. Do I hear a second?
A second.
Second by Ms. Walker Ali. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Ayes carry.
Next on the agenda are miscellaneous requests. We have a request for a continuing education seminar from Tennessee State University for the 2013 Barber and Cosmetology Instructor Seminar on August 11th and 12th. This seminar was scheduled with the Planning Committee, and Ms. Colley was part of the committee. The brochure is attached in your iPads. It includes the agenda for both days, as well as the hours of continuing education, the location, and the educators, as well as the application and directions, and any contact information one would need in order to have questions or schedule hotels.
This educator's great. She's been there before. She's a very good educator. I hear an approval?
Linda's the one educator.
Yes, ma'am. She does 2 days, except for PSI and the Board of Cosmetology. Motion's made by Ms. Smith that we accept. Do I hear a second? Seconded by Ms. Huckabee. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Ayes carry.
This is actually not on your iPad. I received it late on Friday afternoon. It is a request from Trey Turner to waive the 6-month rule 0440-1.10 Section 1, which requires an applicant to retest if the licensure fee is not paid within 6 months of passage of the examination. Mr. Turner provided a letter, which is here in my hands, which explains that he passed the examination in 2007 and was subsequently released from prison into county custody to await trial for pending charges. At that time, he was under the impression his licensure fee had been paid by the Attorney Center program where he received his education, just like all the other inmates. But because he had no means to contact the state board, he did not know his fee had not been submitted. When he went to renew, he realized he had never had the fee paid on his behalf, thus he could not renew. And he is requesting the board consider this good cause to waive the rule, which is stated in the rule. The board can waive that rule for good cause and allow him to be approved to pay his fee and order for him to go forth and obtain instructor education.
So he's asking,
board waive the 6-month retest rule. If you don't pay for your license within 6 months of passing the examination pursuant to 0440-1.10 Section 1, you're required to retest. The board has the authority to waive this for good cause shown, and he's asking the board to do that.
and did he take his exam?
2007.
And did he get out of prison?
He said he was transferred out of their custody after passing the examination. He did not give a date.
What examination?
After passing the cosmetology
Okay.
examination.
So he passed the exam, what year?
2007. And this is just per his letter. I received this on late Friday, and I didn't have time to verify the details. My assumption is that he did indeed pass the exam in 2007. His licensure fee was just never paid, and simply when he tried to renew, he expected to receive a renewal, and he had the person at the center contact the state board to find out that he had not had his licensure fee paid, thus there would be no need to renew. He'd have to retest, and that's what the board office likely told him, because obviously the rule is unless the board waives this for good cause, that you do have to retest. So it's up to the board.
So he
whether-
never got his license.
Correct.
But when you said renew, that threw me off.
Right. I think he didn't find out that he didn't have his license because he's been in prison the whole time until he went to find out when his renewal was due. And that's when he realized his fee had never been paid by the center. I believe it's paid by the center in these instances.
So he took the test in 07, then he went immediately to prison?
So he was in prison when he received the curriculum and when he tested in 07, is my understanding. And prior to receiving his license, prior to realizing that it hadn't been paid, he was transferred into county custody for his trial. And I can read the letter verbatim if you'd like.
My question is, you said he tested in jail?
Yes. The test administrators go to the prisons and administer the tests.
So he passed that test in 07?
Yes.
And he assumed that his license...
Had been paid for by the center, and it had not. So he's requesting the board waive the 6-month rule.
It's reasonable that he would, I guess, assume that.
Discussion? All we're doing is what he's asking for us to waiver.
His requirement to retest pursuant to the rule.
Mm-hmm.
We will obviously, once the board moves on this, verify in our system that he did indeed pass the test.
Move that we grant him permission.
Motion's made by Ms. Smith, by Ms. Huckabee, seconded by Ms. Smith, that we allow him to make an application for license on the condition that he passed the test. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Ayes carry.
Next up, our field trip request. We have a field trip request from Virginia College School of Business and Health for permission to take students to Hamilton County salons, including Great Clips, Chloe's Hair Color and Design, Smart Styles, Regis, Epiphany's Day Spa and Salon, with their educational facilitators from 10 to 2 for the day class and from 6 to 9 for the night class. The request states that the curriculum would directly correlate with the field trip requested, as they will be gaining knowledge from the salon owners and stylists by observing and being responsible to answer questions related to the salon experience. They want approval. We just need a motion to approve or deny.
Do I hear a motion that we approve?
So move.
Ms. Huckabee made a motion we approve.
Second.
Seconded by Ms. McAllister. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Ayes carry.
Next is a field trip request from Paul Mitchell of Knoxville for permission to take students to a spa day for senior citizens, where the students will be assisting with stylists and a spa team doing prep work and cleanup to give back to the elderly.
Discussion or motion?
Make the motion we approve.
Motion's made by Ms. McAllister that we approve. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Herford. All in favor say aye. Thank you. These ayes are getting weak. Opposed, nay. Ayes carry.
Field trip request from Empire Beauty School for permission to take the tech class on May 24th to visit Top Notch Lock Bar and Beauty from 9 to 1 to study haircutting with Terrence Adams, their educational facilitator.
I hear a motion?
I make a motion we approve.
Mr. Herford made the motion we approve. Second.
Second.
Second by Ms. McAllister. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Ayes, carried.
Next, we have a field trip request from Empire Beauty for permission to take the student salon management class outside of the school on April 15th and again on June 4th to Regis and Mary's Salon at Oak Mall in Memphis from 10 to 1. The class curriculum during the week will be management in a salon, and the curriculum will correlate with the requested field trips where students will gain additional knowledge and know-how relating to subject matters taught in the management class.
So if we approve this, we're approving one that's already been done, plus another
Yes.
one coming up.
It'll be retroactive approval for the 15th of April and future approval for the June 4th.
Do I hear a motion?
Make the motion we approve.
Motion been made by Ms. McAllister that we approve. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Walker Ali. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Ayes, carried.
Next is a field trip request from Georgia Career Institute for permission to take students on the annual field trip to the Southern Women's Show on April the 18th, which is retroactive approval.
Already been.
Yes.
Why did they not ask earlier than that?
I think in the past, the administrator of the board had had some authority to approve field trips, and in this case, I haven't asked the board for administrative authority to approve. I'd rather the board approve anything that may be going towards curriculum, so I think some of the schools are still getting used to that.
Where is Southern Women Show?
I'm not sure.
See, it's just hasn't been long because my daughter went to it. I think it's in the Franklin Expo, if I'm not mistaken. That's just south of here. Either that or the big round arena downtown. What's it called?
Bridgestone.
No, not Bridgestone. The old-timey round.
Oh, excuse me.
Convention Center?
The convention.
Municipal Auditorium.
I don't know.
Well, it's here. The Nashville Franklin. It's right here. What was that called? The arena. Any discussion on this?
Just the sentence in there. My students also always enjoy learning about the lasers from the American Laser Company.
Have no control what they show at the woman's show.
I concur with what Miss Huckabee said. We need, and with all respect to the owners and everything, it would be nice to have them presented to us aforehand, or to the board aforehand, as a field trip.
More discussion on this?
I had a question. Do we have any official correspondence as it relates to when the schools request the field trips, or they just request it? Is there a form they have to fill out?
There is no form that they fill out. Generally, we receive them by email. If they call and ask, I always request that they send a written request for the field trip, and generally we receive that by email. Sometimes it's fax, but we always require that it be in writing.
Is it possible for the board office to communicate to the school? I don't know. I don't want to create work for anybody, but is it possible for the board office to communicate to the schools and encourage them that they need to make the request timely
In advance, absolutely.
And because I agree with what you said, but they're probably thinking once it makes it to the office, then that's it, and they're not knowing that request has to wait until the next board meeting comes around. So they're probably not taking in consideration that extra time.
We are in part, we've started letting them know anytime they send an email requesting the approval, we let them know that it will be submitted to the board for approval at the next available meeting. And all the board meeting dates are posted on the board website, so they should have the information of when the board meets. But for example, we are meeting in June and then we won't meet for a month. So if the instructors aren't good at getting their information together on what they want to do, then it may be after June we have some that are retroactive. But there's really no rule or legal details about field trip approvals. This has just been a policy of the board, and that they approve the curriculum and that the students attend. So in this case, this class, I don't believe, has requested hours for this, and we can specify in the letter that the field trip was approved, but without curriculum hours. I'm not sure how you want to go about it, but I can absolutely make a post to the website which says all field trips requested should be submitted prior to the date, and we could say 30 days prior, 60 days prior. We can make some sort of policy and put it on the website, but we'll need to make sure, at least for whatever the board decides they want to do, we give them some leeway time on that to make it start effectively.
Okay, thank you.
Chairman?
Yes, sir.
I personally think it should be up to the management of the school, because, when the board doesn't meet in July, then, they're not going to be thinking about the board not being here. And there's some good opportunities out there for students to see other than just a classroom. And, I don't want my students to go into a field hockey day. I don't think they're going to learn about that, but and I don't think that would be helpful in their train of thought. But that's just a thought.
This is not hockey, that's for sure. Is there anyone in the audience that is familiar with the American Laser Company? Okay, thank you. I was just questioning, Ms. Smith brought it up. Well, we're down to this. Either we approve it or we don't approve it. Since we haven't gotten the message out that it has to be in prior to the April 18th, really has no bearing on whether we accept or don't accept, because we've already accepted the one up here that was April 15th. So the question is, do you approve this particular field trip to the Southern Women's Show on April the 18th?
Madam Chairman, I make a motion we approve.
Motion made by Ms. Smith. We approve. Do I hear a second? Second by Ms. Walker Ali. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Ayes carry.
Next, we have a field trip request from Georgia Career Institute to take the field trip to What's New, the salon. The trip will be in Nashville, where the salon is located at 412 Uptown Square, on May the 7th from 9 to 3:30. The benefit of the trip is to show the difference in a spa and a salon.
Make a motion that we approve.
Second.
Motion made by Ms. Huckabee, second by Ms. Smith, that we approve. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nays. Ayes carry.
Another field trip request from Georgia Career Institute for cosmetology students to go to the State Beauty Supply and Pigtails and Crew Cuts in Murfreesboro on Thursday, April 4th, which is retroactive as well. The benefit of the field trip is to familiarize students with products the state has to offer and to see what options there are in employment after graduation, and the benefits of working at a place called at Pigtails and Crew Cuts.
At a salon?
I'm
Pigtails
assuming
Crew
pursuant
Cut?
to the request that it is.
Okay. I've never heard that particular salon name.
Madam Chairman, I make a motion we approve.
Motion made by Ms. Smith, we approve. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Seconded by Ms. McAllister. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Ayes carried. One no? One no. Mr. Herfer said, thank you, I just went blind. Mr. Herfer said nay. Okay.
Next is a field trip request from Skin Academy at Paul Mitchell for permission to take students on May the 28th to visit salons as well as medical spas. The professionals will clock in at the normal time and leave the school at 10 a.m. and be away from the building for the remainder of the day. They're requesting from 9 to 4:30 hours, I'm assuming.
Discussion, do I hear a motion?
Anybody representing that Paul Mitchell School?
It's the same as this one over here. No, we don't have Paul Mitchell.
There's somebody standing
Oh,
there.
there is.
We can't hear you.
Come to the podium, please.
This does say Skin Academy at
Yes,
Paul
ma'am.
Mitchell. You're representing the Skin Academy?
Paul Mitchell Cosmetology and Skin Academy is in the same building.
I just asked if anybody was here representing that.
Yes, ma'am.
Skin Academy. And she said yes. I wondered if she would like to elaborate on this request.
The request was just for, I'm not sure which salons they're visiting, but it's for the students to go visit the salons, and I think that they said a medical spa on that day and still receive their same hours that they would if they were in the building.
That medical spa, are you familiar with it?
I'm not sure which salons
Okay.
they're visiting.
Just okay, want to field trip to what's the new salon in Nashville located up, thank you ma'am, I'm sorry, thank you, Uptown Square, which is almost identical to this one.
We hadn't had medical spas, have we?
Pause. What?
Make the motion to approve.
A second.
Motion's made by Ms. McAllister, seconded by Ms. Walker Ali, that we approve. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, opposed, no. Ms. Smith? Ayes carried.
Next, we have a field trip request for Virginia College for permission to take a field trip on May 3rd to the AIM Center in Chattanooga from 10 to 2. The AIM Center will be teaching students how to best handle adults with learning disabilities and educating them on clients with special needs. The students will also provide services that directly relate to the curriculum learned. The educational facilitator will be responsible for hosting the trip is Naya Mitchell and Karen Sherlin. The curriculum directly correlates with the requested field trip taught during the course.
Make the motion, we approve.
Motion's made by Ms. McAllister that we approve. Do I hear a second? Seconded by Ms. Walker. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Ayes carry.
Next is a field trip approval from Volunteer Beauty for permission to take students to State Beauty Supply on May the 7th.
Discussion, do I hear a motion? Identical to one we just okayed about going to Supply House. Trying to find it.
Madam Chairman, I make a motion we approve.
Motion's made by Ms. Smith that we approve. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Seconded by Ms. McAllister. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Ayes carry. No on Mr. I'm going crazy today. Herford.
I have one more that's not on here. I think it may have been presented last month, but I don't have my email in front of me to double check, so I'm just going to re-present it, and if it was already presented, then I'll verify that. From Georgia Career Institute for permission to take students to various supply houses to get them signed up to receive student cards and teach them product knowledge related to specific products found in salons, as well as the cost of the products used in the salons for May the 7th.
I thought we approved that we did.
You do think we did? Okay. I just had it in my minutes. I can go back and look at the other minutes if you...
No, I remember it well.
Okay. Perfect. Then we'll forgo. And next up is our legal report.
All right. And that's, I don't know what page that is.
We're on page
Next page.
215.
I've got a question for the board. We routinely have about 30 complaints. I had a board one time that had between 150 and 200 complaints on each legal report. And we, with that agency, formed a complaint committee of 2 or 3 people, which would get the legal report in advance about a week and read it and the recommendations, and then a committee spokesperson at the full board meeting would make a recommendation to approve the legal report, or they would say approved except for these that we'd like to discuss. I'm wondering if this board might be interested, in the interest of dealing with so many complaints and not having to have every one of them read into the record, if they would entertain something like that.
About how many people would be on that committee if they decided to do this?
2 or 3. Not a quorum. There's 7 of you, I believe, so 3 at the most.
But he's saying, you tell me if I'm saying this correctly, that
I just wanted to verify that they would not meet. He would just send the legal report to them in advance of the meeting.
You would meet, but it would be briefly before the full board meeting. Just
but
so
they
I
would
be
they
able-
would study this ahead of time.
Correct.
So what he is saying, would we like to do like some boards do and appoint 2 to 3 people that he would send this that we're about to go into, the legal part, to them, let them study it and see what changes they'd recommend, and then come back and meet together prior to the meeting and then present it to us at this time where he wouldn't have to go through all these cases and read all these cases. Is that correct?
It's not that I don't enjoy doing it, but there's so many of them from month to month that it would a lot of these are very similar. You've probably noticed they're notices of violation, and they don't change a whole lot. Some of them are more significant than others, but in the interest of compressing the procedure,
Rod, this would be like the reciprocity committee, and no one have to...
We've got how many pages today?
31 complaints, so
Well, that's 31.
19, and that's pretty typical. Sometimes there's going to be more.
If you would like the board give me your opinion. We could try it if you'd like to if you wanted to save time from... Now, we would be handed out a copy, the ones that were not on the committee. Is that correct, when we got here?
Committee members would get it ahead of time.
I know, but we...
Yeah, you get it just like always.
Yeah.
At the board meeting. It would just be that...
Like it would be on the
spokesperson-
iPods where we could glance through it
Right.
and make any changes if we desire. Is that correct?
Yes, but when the time rolled around for a presentation, the spokesperson on the committee would say, the committee recommends that the board accept the legal report as recommended, or as recommended except for 18, 33, or whatever ones they have that the full board would need to
Then we
discuss.
could, the ones that did not get it ahead of time, would have it in front of us on the iPod.
Correct.
Well, would you like to discuss that? Would you like to try it and see if it works, or do you not want to do it?
Sometimes whenever we go over them like this, we change some things, what their recommendation is.
That would be, if we tried this, that would be the people that, what they saw, but we'd have a chance to glance through this also. It's just a suggestion.
Right, there have to be board members who would be interested in being on the committee and receiving this in advance. If no one is interested in doing that, then it's fruitless.
After looking at these, and I've been with the board since February, I think, but a lot of the violations are similar to each other in character, if not in scope. And the recommendations are always going to be very similar. And there's going to be consumer complaints which have their own story behind them. There's going to be exceptions, but generally 80%, if not more, of this is just going to be wash, rinse, repeat. And this is just a mechanism that and hearing that I read slowly. So
Excuse me, Robert.
heard that, and I was trying to help you out.
Is there any discussion or questions on this idea? Would you like to make a comment? Would you like to absorb it through the legal report, and then we'll talk about it? You have to have some kind of feelings, you guys, one way or the other. Okay, if no discussion, we'll go ahead with the legal report and talk about it at the end.
Alrighty. Also, the intention that I'm gonna start doing starting next month to bring this board in alignment with the other programs is we're going to increase the minimum civil penalty from $1,000.
From 250 what?
We're going to increase the minimum penalty from $250 to $1,000. This will bring us into alignment with the other boards. So it's not going to say anymore, it's not going to say 250 for each of the violations, it's going to be 1,000 for each. I'm just going to tell you that ahead of time before you see it next time. But civil penalties are intended to do several things: be a penalty, and for another, to remove whatever economic value somebody received from their illegal activity. So,
Mayor?
Absolutely. We have the authority to issue civil penalties from 0 to a maximum for one violation of $1,000. So per violation, the board is allowed to assess a penalty of $1,000.
There's a big sentence between premeditated murder and murder, too.
Absolutely.
Okay, are we still having differences in the inspections to where it's a lot, say there's no grounds for a violation or anything like this?
I don't
With
think
all these inspectors?
I don't think the nature of the inspections has changed much as far as finding the violations, but civil penalties cannot be a cost of doing business. They can't be something that's convenient to pay because it's not a deterrent. So hopefully, if it's significant enough, they will be inspired to not do it again. But I'm just telling you ahead of time because, and once again, as the board, you don't have to accept such a severe penalty. But I'm going to propose it because this is how our other 20-something boards are trending. Anyway, having spread that sunshine, we can start reading the report. Okay, number 1, 2013-006041. The complainant alleges the respondent, a licensed school, committed misconduct by failing to provide contracted services, selectively enforcing school regulations, and refusing to re-enroll an existing student without a good reason. The respondent submits a letter addressing the allegations by stating that the complainant student was refused readmission due to the complainant's failure to abide by the school's regulations, including excessive suspensions, poor attendance, and failure to maintain a paid enrollment balance. So the recommendation is to close the case for lack of probable cause for discipline with the option to revisit the matter should new relevant information arise. Which whenever I recommend closure, that's what that means. We can come back to it if something comes up later that we need to address. Number 2, 2013-004041. The complainant alleges a respondent, a licensed cosmetology school, committed misconduct by mailing the complainant's tax forms with the Social Security number visible through the envelope window and by suspending the complainant without a good reason, in essence, possession of bottled water in an unauthorized location. The respondent submits a letter addressing the allegations by stating the respondent's school will now use envelopes without windows to prevent a reoccurrence. The response letter does not address the suspension, so I recommend close the case for lack of cause for discipline with the option to revisit the matter if we have to. Number 3, 2013-004101. Notice of violation alleges the respondent, a licensed cosmetology school, had at least one trainee teaching a manicuring and/or cosmetology class without an instructor present in violation of the appropriate statute. Additionally, the respondent school alleges the board's sanitary rules, and it's cited there, failing to provide lighting on manicure tables, requires manicure. Okay, this is just a recital. Failure to properly label all products, and failed to ensure that all instructors were wearing proper name tags. Recommendation: authorize a formal hearing with authority to settle by consent order with a civil penalty of $250 for each of the 5 violations, for a total civil penalty of $1,250. 4, 2013-005171. Notice of violation alleges a respondent, a licensed cosmetology shop, violated the following of the board's administrative rules relative to providing manicure services: failing to ensure the employees wore name tags, failing to maintain a clean facility by exhibiting dirty floors, failing to properly label all products, and failing to properly clean and disinfect foot baths, all in violation of the sanitary rules. So recommend authorize a formal hearing with authority to settle by consent order with a civil penalty of $250 for each of the 4 violations, for a total civil penalty of $1,000. Number 5, 2013-005141. The notice of violation alleges the respondent, a licensed cosmetology shop, utilized unlicensed individuals to provide services and failed to maintain a clean facility. Recommend authorize a formal hearing with authority for a consent order for a civil penalty of $250 for each of the 2 violations, for a total civil penalty of $500. 6, 2013-003071. Complaint alleges a respondent, a licensed cosmetologist, is providing hairstyling services from a private residence rather than a licensed shop, which provides, in violation of the statutes, which provides it's unlawful for a license holder to practice outside a shop unless under a proper exemption. There's no evidence that such an exemption applies in this manner, so I recommend close the case due to lack of evidence of probable cause, issue a letter of warning, and then an option to reconsider if new evidence arises. 7, 2013-005131. Notice of violation alleges the respondent, a licensed cosmetology shop, failed to maintain a clean floor, failed to maintain an ultraviolet sanitizer, failed to ensure the employees were wearing name tags, and failed to employ a proper manager for the salon aspect of the business, in violation of the appropriate authorities. Recommend authorize a formal hearing with authority for a consent order for civil penalty of $250 for each of the 4 violations. Total civil penalty of $1,000. Number 8, 2013-003941. Notice of violation alleges the respondent, a licensed cosmetology shop, was employing personnel who are not properly licensed in violation of our license statute. It was also failing to maintain its foot bath and implements in a sanitary manner as required by our rules. Recommend authorize a civil penalty with authority to settle by consent order with a civil penalty of $250 for each of the 2 violations for a total penalty of $500. Number 9, 2013-004111. Notice the violation alleges the respondent, a licensed cosmetology shop, was employing at least 2 unlicensed individuals to serve as clients. Additionally, the notice alleges violations of the facilities rules and that the floor and exposed surfaces were not clean, products were unlabeled, and tools and implements were dirty and exposed. Not
Dirty?
Tools and implements were dirty and exposed. It's not supposed to be there.
Okay.
Recommendation, authorize a formal hearing with authority to settle by consent order for a civil penalty of $250 for each of the 5 violations for a total civil penalty of $1,250. Number 10, 2013-008281. Inspection report and accompanying notice of violation alleges that the respondent, a licensed shop, failed to have a manager on duty during business hours, and that the individual providing services at a workstation was not authorized by the appropriate license to do so. Recommend authorize a formal hearing with authority to settle by consent order with a civil penalty of $250 for each of the 2 violations, total penalty of $500. Number 11, 2013-006031. The complainant alleges the respondent is utilizing unlicensed individuals to provide cosmetology services. The respondent answers via letter all employees are licensed and invites a board inspection. So recommend close the case due to lack of evidence of probable cause and issue a letter of warning with the option to reconsider if new evidence arises. Number 12, 2013-008291. Notice of violation alleges the respondent, an unlicensed business, is currently providing cosmetology services despite the shop license having expired in 2009. Additionally, the notice of violation alleges that the respondent business is employing a total of 6 individuals to provide these services. Recommend authorize a formal hearing with authority to settle by consent order the total civil penalty of $1,000 pursuant to the appropriate rule. The rule being it's an unlicensed business. Number 13, 2013-008321. The inspection report and accompanying notice of violation alleges that the respondent, a licensed cosmetology shop, did not have a manager present at the time of inspection during business hours and failed to display licenses at all workstations. Recommend authorize a formal hearing with authority to settle by consent order with a civil penalty of $250 for each of the 2 violations for a total penalty of $500. 14. 2013-005221. Notice of violation alleges the respondent, a licensed manicure shop, employed a service provider who was not wearing an ID tag, and that the manager allowed the shop to be in possession of all necessary equipment for providing waxing services. No actual services were observed being provided. Additionally, the notice of violation alleges that tools were not properly cleaned and stored. Recommend authorize a letter of warning and close the case. Number 15, 2013-5211. And the reason for the letter of warning is because nothing was observed. 15 is 2013-005211. Notice of violation alleges the respondent, licensed cosmetology shop, is employing unlicensed individuals to provide services. In this case, the individual observed providing services previously had a license that had expired on August 31, 2011. Additionally, the notice of violation alleges that clean towels were not properly stored and hairbrushes were not clean. Recommend authorize a letter of warning and close the case. 2013-0053 2013-007591, notice of violation alleges the respondent beauty supply business is operating as a cosmetology shop by attempting to provide styling services on a customer's hair. The respondent has provided statements from 2 witnesses that this was not the case and that the only transactions occurring were the sale of wigs. So recommend authorize a cease and desist order and close the case with a letter of warning. 17-2013-003081, complaint alleges the respondent, a licensed cosmetology shop, committed misconduct by using clippers to put cuts on the customer's son, and that the talcum powder was expired and machine blades and clippers were not clean. Board office records indicate that a request for response to the allegations was sent to the respondent and later returned unclaimed, unable to forward. And close the case due to lack of evidence of probable cause and issue a letter of warning with the option to reconsider if new evidence arises. 18-2013-004421, notice of violation alleges the respondent, a licensed cosmetology shop, is employing 2 unlicensed individuals to provide services. Recommend authorize a formal hearing with the authority to settle by consent order with a civil penalty of $250 for each of the 2 violations for a total penalty of $500. 19-2013-006681, notice of violation alleges the respondent is operating an unlicensed cosmetology shop in violation of the statute. No actual services were observed being provided at the time of the inspection. So recommend authorize a cease and desist advisory notice and close the case. Number 20, 2013-006641, a notice of violation alleges the respondent is operating an unlicensed cosmetology shop in violation of the statute. No actual services were observed being provided at the time of the inspection. So recommend authorize a cease and desist advisory notice and close the case. 21, 2013-006661, notice of violation alleges the respondent, a licensed manicure shop, has a waxing area with a hot wax machine set up with tools to perform waxing. Additionally, the notice of violation alleges that the area inspector observed unclean tools which were improperly stored in products that were not labeled, and further found clean product that is not cleaning. Yes, it's an ING. Cleaning products that is not EPA registered. The notice further alleges that the inspection sheet was covered and not in a conspicuous place. So recommend authorize a formal hearing with authority to settle by consent order with a civil penalty of $250 for each of the 5 violations, for a total civil penalty of $1,250. 22. 2013-006701, a notice of violation alleges that the area inspector observed the respondent's shop was open for business without first being properly licensed. The inspector states that a new shop application was submitted, but the shop owner Cosmetology's license was expired. No actual services were observed being provided at the time of the inspection. Board office records indicate that the owner's license has now been renewed. However, the application to license a shop has not yet been received. Recommend authorize a cease and desist advisory notice and close the case. 23, 2013-006721, notice of violation alleges that the area inspector observed a hot wax machine in the rear of a license. Actual services were observed being provided at the time of the inspection. So recommend authorize a letter of warning and close the case. 24, 2013-006781, a notice of violation alleges the respondent, a licensed cosmetology shop, failed to ensure that all employees wore name tags and failed to cover trash and soiled towel containers and maintain adequate wet sterilizers. And authorize a letter of warning and close the case. Whenever that's recommended, it's probably because of the complaint history. They don't have one. In this case, the shop's been open for 20 years. Not quite 20 years. They hadn't done
Can we
anything.
ask a question now?
You may.
Okay. I just wonder, why are we Well, we've charged some with, like the name tag, there has been a charge, and then 14 and 24, I just noticed we didn't.
Because they don't have a complaint history. Now, we can change that. I sort of tend to train, these people have been licensed since 95. No violations in all that time. So I just felt that a letter of warning might be more appropriate for them for all those years of good conduct than, dropping the hammer on them like we do other people. That in some cases haven't been licensed as long, and in some have repeatedly offended. Yes.
It gets back to my point.
Well, like I say, we can change that. I'm just telling you my rationale. Certainly the board is at liberty to do whatever you want. This is just sort of my assessment.
They all know that from school, don't they, Mr. Herbert?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I think that we ought to treat them all fair. If we've got to wear one, I think that we do need to.
Okay. That's perfectly fine.
Just my opinion.
All righty. Let's get through the last 5. 25, 2013-005151. And I agree, Ms. Smith. That's logical. The notice of violation and accompanying inspection sheet alleges that the area inspector observed a licensed stylist practicing in an unlicensed cosmetology shop. The inspector states that there was hair on the floor that would be in violation of the rule, and he also checked other sanitation violations in the inspection sheet that would have potentially violated our sanitary rules. Because the respondent is not currently licensed by the board's authority to sanction the respondent's conduct and assess a civil penalty is restricted to the unlicensed activity. And they don't have a license, so they're not bound by our rules. The bad thing they did is they don't have a license. So the recommendation is authorize a formal hearing with authority to settle by consent order with a total civil penalty of $1,000 for violating the licensing rule. 26. 2013-006741. The notice of violation alleges that the respondent, a licensed manicure skincare shop, was employing an unlicensed individual to service a pedicure client. Additionally, the notice alleges that the files and drills were improperly stored in violation of the appropriate rule and that identification name tags are not being worn. So I recommend authorize a formal hearing with authority to settle by consent order with the penalty of $250 for each of the 3 violations for a total penalty of $750. 7. 2013-006771. The notice of violation alleges that the area inspector observed 4 individuals servicing clients' manicures and a licensed manicure. The individuals who walked out of the shop did not have a license posted, and that the other 2 individuals did not have identification tags on. Additionally, the inspector states that the shop's inspection sheet was not posted. The inspector also noted other sanitation violations in the inspection sheet. So recommend authorize a formal hearing with authority to settle by consent order with a civil penalty of $250 for each of the 3 violations for a total penalty of $750. 28. 2013-006761. Notice of violation and accompanying inspection sheet alleges the area inspector observed the shop manager and a stylist practicing on clients with expired licenses, and that the shop inspection sheets were not posted. The inspector also noted other violations in the inspection sheet, including but not limited to name tags were not worn, other sanitation allegations that violated our sanitary rules. So recommend authorize a formal hearing with authority to settle by consent order for a penalty of $250 for each of the 4 violations for a total penalty of $1,000. 29, 2013-007481. The notice of violation alleges that the respondent, a licensed manicure shop, failed to ensure that all personal licenses are prominently displayed at the workstations. In this case, the owner of the shop pulled 11 licenses from behind the counter in addition to a licensee who did not have her license posted. The inspector also observed drill bits were improperly stored. So the recommendation is to authorize formal hearing with authority to settle by consent order with a civil penalty of $250 for each of the 2 violations for a total of $500. 30 is 2013-005321. The complainant alleges the respondent, a licensed cosmetology shop, committed misconduct by providing unprofessional eyebrow waxing service that resulted in the complainant's skin being, injured. Wax stick being put back into the wax. Additionally, the complainant states that the shop does not have a licensed esthetician and that she's going to file a civil suit to recover her personal damages. The respondent submits a letter addressing the allegations by stating that they always have a licensed esthetician, in this case who is listed in the shop inspection sheet, to perform waxing services. However, the licensee left the shop in February 2013 and they are currently suspending their waxing services until they find a replacement. And further states that they have enough supplies to perform the service with the sanitary measures and also to provide a safe job in regards to the health and safety of the clients. Thus, the allegation regarding double dipping the stick in the wax is unfounded. Recommend close the case due to lack of evidence of probable cause for discipline with the option to reconsider if new evidence comes up. And the last one, 2013-004431. The complainant alleges the respondent is doing hair from a private residence rather than a licensed shop. The complainant submitted a copy of a Facebook post that the respondent advising her clients not to bring their children with them to their appointments in order to give them service. There's no evidence that the respondent is providing hair and or cosmetology services. So recommend close the case due to lack of evidence of probable cause for discipline with the option to reconsider if new evidence arises.
Questions on the legal report other than changing number 9, removing the word not? Are there any other questions?
I was just looking at 15 and 18 as far as, and I've forgotten what I was thinking.
You were thinking that one of them got a letter of warning.
I think that's what I was thinking, yes, sir.
And one got a civil penalty.
That's
I actually think that was probably a mistake on my part. I think that number 15 should have gotten the same as number 18.
So we're changing number 15 to...
I'd like to change my recommendation in 15 to authorize a formal hearing with authority to settle by consent order with a civil penalty of $250. It looks like for each of the 2 violations because they violated a statute and the sanitation rules for a total of civil penalty of $500.
Anyone else have any discussion on the legal report? We've changed number 15 to $500. Number 9, removed the word not. Those are only 2 changes so far. If there are no more changes, do I hear a motion that we accept? Motion made by Ms. Huckabee, seconded by Ms. Smith, that we accept the legal report. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Ayes carry.
Any other thoughts about the complaint committee, or it was sort of tepid?
I think they got to absorb and decide. I don't think any decision is going to be made.
Okay. Next, we have consent orders for May 2013 totaling $7,750. We need a motion to accept those consent orders.
I hear a motion to accept the consent orders. Motion is made by Ms. Huckabee. We accept the consent order, $7,750.
Second.
Seconded by Ms. McAllister. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Ayes carry.
Now, under other business, we have a couple of different items, just mainly for discussion. I may ask for some motions along the way. First is the summary of the work group on med spas requested by a Senate Resolution 94 that was sent to the board last fall. I was the board's representative. I had sent this letter to you all for review. Basically, the Board of Medical Examiners headed up the work group, and Dr. Zanoli was the head of the work group, and I was basically there as just a representative for the board. And this was their letter submitted to the General Assembly as a summary. Did anybody have any questions about that? It was sent to you in your packet as well.
Rachel, now you were representing the board, the cosmetology board. How do you feel about it?
No, I have learned a lot as the representative. I think that it's definitely an area that needs regulation. Medical spas are not regulated by any authority in the state of Tennessee. There's a little bit of remote regulation because doctors are regulated by the Board of Medical Examiners, nurses are regulated by their board, estheticians are regulated by us, but the actual facilities where the services are happening are not regulated. And we in the past have received a lot of complaints for lasers and injections and that sort of thing that the board had made the opinion of we don't regulate those activities, and we sent it to the Board of Medical Examiners. So there's definitely a gap that needs to be addressed by some sort of regulation, and it will definitely interweave our board along with some of the medical boards, and they'll have to take our laws and rules into consideration when they do that, because estheticians are often the individuals who are performing these services. Now, a lot of estheticians came to the meetings and voiced their opinion that they felt the Board of Cosmetology should maintain regulation of them, but because the Board of Cosmetology doesn't certify lasers or regulate lasers, nor do our laws and rules give us the ability to do so, that issue was addressed, and I addressed that, the Cosmetology Act is dated, and there are services that estheticians perform that aren't included in our laws, and that the General Assembly needs to, look at that in moving us forward if they are going to ask us to regulate this. But that was my opinion of it, in somewhat short of a lot of the different topics we talked about.
I made it a little bit easier to understand. It's on the third page, top paragraph. Attorney General's opinion clearly states that aesthetic services performed which exceed those procedures authorized under the Cosmetic Act would have to be performed in a medical office by a person licensed for that medical practice and within their capacity to medical professional. I like that statement.
That was also addressed drastically in various meetings, because there was a big issue with, would a neurologist be allowed to use lasers when their practice is neurology and not lasers? And they made it apparent that anyone who's using these lasers, whether it be a medical doctor, a physician's assistant, or a licensed esthetician, would need to make sure that they went to the certification and training from the laser company who built and manufactures the lasers. And those individuals from the laser companies did attend the meetings as well and made some comments as well. So,
thank you.
If there's no more questions on that topic, I also sent an email that I received from Mona Sappenfield, who is an esthetician who I believe owns a med spa in West Tennessee, and she's appeared before you as well, who addressed some questions to me. I have not responded to this email yet because I'm not quite sure how to respond, but I thought I'd see if the board had any opinion on a response and questions or comments there.
So you're asking our response to her questions? Is that?
If there is any response, if y'all have any comments or questions or thoughts.
Reading it and all, Madam Chairman, it looks like, okay, the curriculum and all of the esthetician and everything would have to be more in depth and changed and to comply. If under us.
Basic, we would still have to go by our law, even if it's stated. We have to go with what's on the book today.
Any other questions or comments? Well, moving on from the med spa issue, I wanted to address the school inspections. It seems that last year there were a few schools in Upper East Tennessee that did not receive a board member inspection because of the lack of availability. But the schools were approved for renewal. But I wanted to make sure this year with this administration that we were making sure every school was properly inspected. I have given some of you your list of the schools that you inspected last year for organizational purposes, but I still have a list of about 12 schools that were not inspected. And I've talked to Ms. McAllister, and I think she's going to be able to inspect a few of the ones in Knoxville, but there are some schools in way Upper East Tennessee that will still need a board member to be inspected. And our proposal, and I've talked to Rob about this, and he doesn't seem to think that there's any restriction as far as legally with our laws and rules, is to request the schools send their student files to us, either physically make copies of them or electronically for our review in the board office. And either the director can do that or we can bring a board member in to review those files. The inspector will still do the physical inspection, but we have already a list of the requested students enrolled per their monthly hour report, so we'll know that they're sending everything. And some other boards, for example, TREC is thinking about, they audit their offices, and sometimes if it's a huge school with 250 students or more, we'll often just poll and request a certain sampling of the student files in order to save time. And I wanted to get the board's opinion and see if the board would vote for approval for us to do this with a few schools this year, to see if it's possibly something that we can do in the future for different schools, help save the board resources and also time for you all as board members, since you have to inspect. Any thoughts, comments?
Different thing altogether than a surprise inspection.
Absolutely. It's almost helping the schools self-regulate themselves. They have to make sure the files they send us have everything that they need. But the inspector does still go and do the sanitation part, so it would simply be the board member's part for file review.
Are you talking about applying this to maybe some of the schools that have not been inspected in a while?
Yes.
Not all the schools.
Not every school, just kind of a trial run for some of the schools this year that are in Upper East Tennessee and that we did not get a board member out to last year, to go ahead and send us their student files. We can draft a letter to propose to send to the schools for y'all's review maybe next month and present it to you for all the information that the school would be required to send us. And the law doesn't tell us how we are required to inspect, whether it has to be an on-site inspection or a remote inspection. And until they comply with sending us all the information and we approve, then, you know, obviously they won't be able to renew. And if for some reason there is a hiccup and we do need to send somebody, we could arrange for that. But currently there's about, I want to say 8 or 9 schools that are really out of our purview because we don't have a serving board member in that area.
He's asking, is it okay that they tried that?
Basically, it's an audit of school files remotely. We'll still look for the same things. We'll still look to make sure every student that we request is included, or that if we request every student file pursuant to their monthly hour reports, that we vet that against the monthly hour report to make sure the school has sent us everything. And if there's any question about what's in there, or if there's something missing, we'll address that at the time with legal and with the school administration.
I think a school would send you files that weren't completely correct.
You know, if they're required to send us their full files within X amount of days of our request and they don't have a complete file, then they'll have to tell us why. And if they don't have a complete file, we know if they don't send us a file because they submit monthly hour reports every month for the students that are in attendance. So it's almost foolproof. And if they don't have something they need, then they obviously know, and they'll go out and get it and fix the problem. That's our opinion of it. So it's almost a form of self-regulation. I would hope that a school wouldn't send us a file that's incomplete, but mistakes happen.
Iris, do you have a list of pertinent information that makes it satisfactory for the board that you're to look at in regard to items 1 through 10 type thing?
There is an inspection sheet that the board members complete when they inspect.
Right, but I was wondering for the next meeting and go over it and decide whether we need to.
Well, the board has to inspect these schools for them to renew. That's part of the renewal process. And last year, they weren't inspected by a board member. So we're really trying to fix a problem that was in place last year, and maybe in the future help us move forward with remote file inspection. But I think that our form is public form as far as getting it to you for your review. I can absolutely get the board members' inspection sheet to you for review.
Jean and I have several.
Right.
In Pearl.
But it doesn't, the inspection sheet, it doesn't include what we look for in the files.
Right, and that's in the rule, what you look for in the files. Is that correct? Yes, in the legal rules.
I don't think you get the same results as the school expecting a board member at least once a year to actually look at the school. Now that's the way I feel about it, by inspecting the school.
But
I know you've got some that's not been inspected.
Right.
I know that.
Questions?
I had a question. So if we don't approve this recommendation to do the inspection electronically, then what is the option?
Someone will be driving to East Tennessee to inspect the schools before we renew them, or various people. We'll have to have some volunteers because the board is required to inspect these schools to renew. We can't just waive every year and allow them to continue to be licensed. We've got to find a resolution to the problem.
Hours, is this just a one-time thing, or
Well, I am trying to think ahead before the school renewals come up in September, and we're scrambling to find out how we need to approve these people for renewal, even though we don't have anyone to go there to inspect. I thought that it would be helpful to at least request a review of their files and work with the area inspector in going there. We'll have a person on site if we have questions about a file that we can schedule. Because we have a board office employee in that area. But as far as it being permanent, no, I'm not asking for it to be permanent right now. I think that it's up to the board if they want to continue to use this. And you know, it's just an idea for a solution to a problem. If board members want to volunteer to go all the way up to East Tennessee to visit these schools,
Up there,
there's 12.
12. You got 20.
And it saves on board resources as well. You know, the board office money pays for these inspections and the mileage to go and do it. And, you know, if it were me, and I'm sure Mr. Herford, you can relate with this, if I knew I were being inspected, I would make sure everything in every file was in there. And so it would help you stay on your toes, in my opinion. Now, is it the same as a board member being present? Absolutely not. But in some instances, self-regulation is a good thing, because next year it may be that we do have a board member there, and the board member will be able to go and see that they have kept everything in place because they didn't know if they'd have to send it in again or not. But this is a resolution to the issue this year at hand.
I think it's good that we can do anything we can to help the board get up to date. As far as future examinations, Ms. June has done more examinations than I ever will, and I'm going to take her advice as to future action. But I concur that we need to get something done and help the board get caught up.
So with your permission, if Rob and I can draft a letter to submit to some of these schools of what they would be required to send us and present it at the June meeting for your approval, if you could vote that we be allowed to do that and we'll provide the schools as well. If
They will
you'd
still
like.
be inspected by the inspector.
Yes, the inspector would still be doing the physical and sanitation inspection. We would just be doing more or less of a file audit for the schools for the board members' inspection. And they'd still be required to maintain everything else per renewal as required, meaning their bond and instructors and licensure and payment and everything. This would just be for the file audit purposes, basically.
So, by making a motion to okay that for this year and this year only, would that help the situation until we see how it works?
If you want to make a motion to go ahead and approve it, you absolutely can. If you just want to make a motion to review the letter that we're proposing to send, for us to prepare a letter to send to these schools, we can just start there. It's up to you all.
All right. We don't need a motion for that, do we?
Well, I'd like to go ahead and get a motion, because that way I can have it in order in the board that we've talked about it, obviously, and that there's a motion for us to move forward with at least some sort of action on the topic.
I would like to make the motion that we approve the recommendation to do the cyber audit. What shall I call it?
Remote.
The remote audit, in order to expedite the inspections of the schools in East Tennessee that were overlooked due to lack of staffing last year.
I hear a second. Motion's made by Ms. Walker-Ali, seconded by Mr. Herford, that we give Ms. Powers the authority to send the letter for the remote inspections. Is that how you
Yes,
word
ma'am.
it? All in favor say aye. Opposed? Nay? Ayes carry.
We also wanted to announce that the June board meeting is going to be on June the 10th. We're going to move it from the 3rd to the 10th due to scheduling conflicts. Does anybody have any questions or issues with that? Yes, go ahead.
That's the instructor seminar in Memphis that weekend, Sunday and Monday.
By the way, that August date that we talked about earlier about the new school, new continuing ed, isn't that the same date that's already scheduled by Milady or some other?
It's in June.
I was thinking there was another
One
one.
here, yours.
August.
August 11th or somewhere in there.
Give me 1 second, I'll look, because we voted to approve the other one today.
I think it's the same date.
August 11th and 12th is the Nashville TSU Instructor Seminar.
They were wanting one when?
And the one requested today was
August 10th and 11th in
10th and
Gatlinburg.
11th. It was a Saturday and a Sunday, and this one was a Sunday and a Monday.
Right.
And Pearl, you're scheduled to go to the Memphis seminar on the 9th and 10th.
Along with Miss Smith.
Miss Smith?
Are you attending that one this year?
No.
I mean,
Oh,
can't
okay.
but one go. I mean, we can't be two together. So I'll just not go.
Okay, I mean, thought
that's
that
what
dealt
she's
with
told me.
the meetings prior to the planning meetings.
Yes, that does. That deals with the planning meetings. The seminar is a renewal requirement for instructor licensure. If you're going to discuss board business, which would be approval, then that would be a conflict of the Open Meetings Act. But just attending a seminar would not be.
Oh, okay.
So would the June meeting date for the 10th conflict with anyone else's schedule?
On a Monday?
Yes. It's just the following Monday? Okay. Next on the list is we have received a request from the Tennessee Board of Education Training Consultant who is requesting a board member attend their summer institute where all the vocational and public schools instructors go on July 15th through the 19th on MTSU and talk about cosmetology offered in those vocational areas. Is anybody interested in attending that to speak on behalf of the board? The board member would need to be committed to present on Wednesday the 17th from 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. on July the 17th. And being that we'll have a new director at that time, if there's not a board member that wants to, we can arrange something with the director, I'm sure. Generally, it's the same presentation that is done at the instructor seminars, just board updates and any changes that have occurred. So
We're doing those this year.
right now, we don't have an appointee. All the instructor seminars have just requested that someone attend. We haven't discussed who it may be because it hasn't really been pressed, but it is something that's on the to-do list. I'm not sure if the new director will want to attend or if it'll be something that I do or we talk about at the June meeting. So.
On July 17th, I can check and see if I'll be available for that.
Okay. I'll just email with you. How's that sound?
Okay, thank you. Correct.
Does the board approve Pearl to be available for that and attend on the board's behalf if she is available? We get a motion to approve Pearl.
Do I hear a motion? Okay, Mr. Herford made the motion and seconded by
Second.
Mr. McAllister, that we send, if Pearl can make it, she represents us in Murfreesboro. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Ayes carry.
Last but not least, two other items. One, in last month's barber meeting, there was an individual who came to complain about a prison allowing her to receive instructor hours towards her teaching curriculum. And it was brought to my attention that I did not know a lot about the curriculum offered in prisons because it's not something that the Board of Cosmetology regulates. So I made it a point to get a meeting with a representative from the Board of Education to educate me, as well as one of the legal staff attorneys, Rob, actually didn't attend because it was for a barber item, not cosmetology, but it was related, and I've since talked to him about it. And it seems to me that the prison curriculum is regulated by the Board of Education, the cosmetology and the barber curriculum, and that the Board of Education representative has advised that they do not approve instructor curriculum. In the past, I'm not aware of a ratio of instructor applications that we've received from students at the prisons, but I wanted to get the board's opinion to find out if they're aware if prisons have instructor curriculums that we allow applicants to test, or if this is ever an issue that's come up before. Not an issue, or ever having an instructor apply? Okay.
Like it didn't exist.
I'll make it a note. I need to talk to PSI to find out if they do instructor examinations at the prisons. I'm sure if we approve the applications that they do, but they approve our applications, obviously. So if they are approving applications for instructors in prisons, we just need to make sure that the curriculum is approved by the Board of Education. That means us working with another agency, and I'm going to stay in contact with the Board of Education. But because this came up as a barber issue, and because these prisons also offer cosmetology, I thought it would be good to bring up with you all as well. So just make a note of that if you happen to think of something in the past where that did happen. Thirdly, or last on my agenda, is PSI's approval process. Back in 2011, the board approved a contract for PSI to approve our applicants for testing. And PSI tests for various other industries' professional licensing as well. And the process currently is that the applicant submits the examination application to PSI, and PSI reviews it and approves those people to test. PSI then sends the board office the test applications. If an applicant has a felony checked, then those applicants come before the board with their information, and then the board will then approve them. That approval is not really for testing, it's really for application, because they can test, but until the board approves them, they can't receive their licensure. Also, the PSI allows them to test. They can test as many times as necessary. There's no restriction. When they pass, they receive a letter, a blue letter that says that they've passed, and they send the bottom of that in with their payment for their licensure. Currently, the board office employee, and some of this is administrative, but I wanted to make sure you all know in advance, the board office employee receives the applications and she puts their information into the system. She then receives the testing information and she puts that information into the system. She then receives the payment information and she puts that into the system. A different board office who does this with PSI, who around the same time as the Board of Cosmetology changed to allow them to approve their applications, completely did the process differently than the Board of Cosmetology did. And I'm under the impression that it may have just been the way the program was administered at the time, but PSI with this board accepts the applications on the phone and online instead of having the school fill out a written application and mail an application to Las Vegas and wait for the approval, and sometimes they're sent back. They would do all of this electronically or over the phone. And if you don't answer or you don't submit something, it doesn't let you submit the application. Then the applicant is approved by the testing company, PSI, to test. Then once they pass, the testing company submits documentation that they passed to them along with their approval letter, like they do with the Board of Cosmetology. That information is then sent to the board with their payment, and it's much quicker. It's a one-step. They submit to the testing company, they get their examination scores, and then they submit everything to the board. Instead of our end of the board offices getting the application, entering the application, getting the test examination scores, entering the test examination scores, we want to look at the process a little more closely administratively to shorten it and allow PSI to actually do that, because we in our data entry have not taken out the formal approval process. Why would we contract with a testing company to allow them to approve our examinations when we are still doing it physically? So this is an issue that's recently come up when we're looking at board office employees' efficiency and effectiveness and what they do every day for the board. And it seems that we need to allow PSI to do what we've given them the authority to do, but changing the paper part hasn't happened yet. So I'm working with the testing company to see what they can do to allow us to do this. But this will be something that we'll have to let the schools know electronically how to submit applications and obtain a way in order for them to certify the education. And we already have a form for this, which is our completion withdrawal forms that they already use all the time already. And that was part of the test application process. It was removed because it's duplicative, because they already submit that on the back of the test. Unless they're a transfer student, then it's not duplicative. So the intent is to allow the schools to submit this information electronically and over the phone. That way, when the student goes into test, all they have to do is sign off that all that information is there, and the only transfer of paperwork from schools or students to the testing company will then be the one-piece withdrawal completion form. Now, that was a lot of information. I've been working on this, trying to determine why we never changed it to be like the other programs that are in reg boards at the time. And I think it was just a management oversight.
Rufus, what did she say?
Ms. Powers, I recommend all the above.
Sounds simplified.
Because the student does not want to be caught up in all this bureaucracy of waiting and waiting and waiting.
Right. And since I have been in the position where I am, I've received complaints on the process and on how long it takes applications to get there, because they have to be originals and notarized and so on and so forth. And I think that this will really shorten up our process. And I think that this was the intent originally, but just the management part of it never happened. We never actually physically instituted removing this paper application to this change. Now, it will take a lot of education on the board office's part and letting the schools know when we start doing this process, when PSI can get it into effect. It won't change any contract with PSI. There won't be any money changes that I'm aware of. And I've actually just made sure with our IT that we can do it, and made sure with PSI that they understand it. And I'm supposed to have a conference call in the next few days with this in mind, and then PSI has also asked that the new director be brought in to make sure that any transition is exactly as we plan it, with her on board as well. So,
May I do a question? I'd like to know your opinion on how it would work in the school for you. Uh-huh.
I think that anyone who has the electronic access, whether it be by phone or by the school, would have access. When you get to the test site, there's a piece of paper that you sign to confirm all the answers submitted for you as the applicant to test. And you write your contact information and then you sign, and then there's a confirmation page that everything that you signed is what you signed. And those two pieces of paper are printed with your personal information, with the questions that you responded to on the application electronically or over the phone, however you submitted the application, and they have your scores on them as well, and they're printed on PSI security paper. You are supposed to submit those with your approval letter, so that is physically what the board office would get as your file. So the only physical documentation that the school would need to provide would simply be the completion withdrawal form, which certifies the hours.
Bill, how does that sound to you? Bill, where'd you find out about this Las Vegas rating? That's shocking me. I don't know about any of that. Do you have anything else to come before the board?
In the process of the change with PSI, we'll be taking the 5 sections of the completion withdrawal form out and allowing it to not be a carbon form anymore, just be one form. The board gets the original, and anybody else can get a copy. And the original is submitted, obviously, to the board, and then PSI would send that to us. So that would be the only other change I can think of in this process. So.
For business to come before the board, do not forget June the 10th.
Why were we changing that instead of the first?
There's some scheduling conflicts, and I don't think that the new director or myself will be available that day.
I hear a motion, we adjourn.
So moved.
Motion made by Ms. Huckabee, seconded by Ms. Smith. We adjourn. All in favor say aye. Opposed, nay. Ayes carried. Adjourned.
Be careful going home.
You be careful.